Good evening, everyone, and you are welcome. You're welcome to TECHBIZ. It's always exciting to catch up with you all every Thursday at 5 p.m. Lagos time. It is the platform by Eco Innovation Center to support entrepreneurs, and it's about supporting you and supporting your business to, adapt, thrive in this VUCA world that we live in. And for those of you who haven't even started, is providing the kind of knowledge, information that you need to make sure that you are starting on the right foot. So welcome once again. We usually always introduce ourselves in the chat box. So please put in your name, your industry, and where you're joining from. Feel free as well, of course, to say much more if you want to. If you want to say a lot more about what you do in your business, because this space is also about networking, because we want to get to know each other. We want to get to add value to each other as well. And who knows, you just may meet and see someone who needs your service within this platform. And that's, of course, it's always a very exciting thing. We are going to start ever so quickly, but as always, I would like to introduce Eco Innovation Center and the kind of platform that we offer for networking. If you missed the networking session, I think we had that session about three weeks ago, and it was handled by Karika, a lady on fire. She's always about networking, and she tells us the power of the community. And from coming out of that TECHBIZ particular episode, we then decided that we were launching our own community of entrepreneurs, and that community is called TECHBIZ Nation. TECHBIZ Nation is going to have its own citizens, and you guys are the citizens of TECHBIZ Nation. But on a more serious note, it's about having that community that supports and fuels the growth of startups and techpreneurs. Of course, no man is an island. Of course, we need people. We need to learn from people. We need to share experience, and those kinds of experience that help us avoid mistakes that others have made before. And the purpose for the platform is, of course, all about engagement. We share developmental updates and, of course, discuss areas of common purpose. Right now, the whole community is inhabited on Telegram. So if you want to join, you have to go to ecoicenter.com. That's the Eco Innovation Center website. So you go to ecoicenter.com/TECHBIZ Nation, and you can fill the form to join. There's always, of course, a question about why you want to join, because we want to make sure that people who are within the platform are like-minded, and of course, there's value to be exchanged. For us, it's about connecting so that we can conquer competition, conquer the market, make sure that we are, of course, operating within a space of growth of our business. That's where collaboration comes in, and making sure that our businesses are lasting. Remember, again and again, we've talked about a certain percentage of entrepreneurship ventures that do not last beyond a few years. Here, we know that in TECHBIZ Nation, we're building to last, and we want to make sure that as much as possible, we support each other in order to reach that collective goal. For now, the membership is still open. For now, the membership is still free. That's going to evolve over time, and that's why I would encourage you, should you want to be a part of this nation, and I'm sure you want to be, if you want to be, please go to the website and make sure that you are putting in your application to join. For those who are already members, I'm sure you can testify of the engagement that is going on already within that platform. So TECHBIZ Nation, I'm looking forward to having you join. So let's go into what today really is about. It is flawless execution, executing flawlessly. If you go to ecoicenter.com/webinar, you will see we have had various topics on planning, business planning, financial planning, even you're in the legal space, even about defining your market segmentation, how to build your strategy, how to build leadership within your framework, how to even enter the space of entrepreneurship. Now, all of that falls flat if you do not execute. Execution. And you know, a lot of the times we find that, especially in our execution is where we fall flat. So today I have a fantastic person, Funke Banigo. She's going to be talking about executing flawlessly, how to get your entire organization aligned to your plans and the discipline, the rigor to execute. Naturally, when we are executing or when we're implementing, we will encounter challenges, obstacles, barriers, and sometimes we just pull back. Sometimes we are so discouraged, we don't continue. Here she's going to share with us a structured framework that helps us go through that journey of executing in order to finally achieve what is, the goal. The quote we used at the beginning when we were communicating this platform was a quote from Steve Jobs. And he did say very clearly that execution is what moves the needle, is what changes the platform. The audio is epileptic. So sorry guys. Is it maybe it's my network, maybe it's your network. Can everyone hear me? Please say yes in the chat room if you can hear me. I'm waiting. Yes, Friday, thank you. Yes. Okay, excellent. So everyone can hear. The difference comes in execution. I think that's the long and short of it. And I'm sorry if you cannot hear me clearly. Sarah, maybe you need to log off and log on again so that the connection is smoother. Funke, you're welcome. It's the first time I'm going to have my speaker in the same room as me. So she's sitting right here on my right. And it's so exciting. Funke, say hello to everyone.
Hello. The camera should come on to me, shouldn't it?
It's on.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Funke Banigo. Doja has been so kind in introducing me. She said a lot about me already. There's probably very little to add to what she's already said. I was born and grew up in Nigeria. I lived in the UK for too many years, is what I'd say. But all the while I was in the UK, I maintained my Nigerianness and I was very close to home. I've been in Nigeria now for just over a year. I came back early last year and I did run back to London a few times, but I was quite determined that I'm home this time and I'm not going to take the easy way out and run back to London, so I'm home. I'm presently the Managing Director of Vidicon Technology Solutions Limited, which is an agile and innovative technology services provider that does everything from application development to IT managed services. We do capacity building for organizations, and we also help to create ICT reforms. Prior to that, since being in Nigeria, I've been Group Managing Director of BWC Groups Limited, having started as a consultant working with one of the subsidiaries, Western Lotto. So I think I'm fully back to being Nigerian. I think the Oyibo has gone out of me now. Thank you very much. Okay, executing flawlessly. I'm a woman with a story, and everyone has a story, but my story has particularly been full of adversity, personal. I've had a lot of experiences that people would not ordinarily survive. And I've had people say to me, Funke, how do you do it? And you're always smiling. The truth of the matter is I like smiling and nothing can take that away from me. Also, I'm a very determined person, and when you say no to me, I thank you and I walk away motivated and I go back and I try harder. And that's what executing flawlessly is about. So today, our agenda, first of all, will be an introduction to the topic. We'll have a quick discussion about what it is, what it takes to execute flawlessly. We'll examine your value proposition, because when I started out creating the slides, thinking about what I was going to say, it was getting very academic. See, I'm a bit of a nerd, I'm an academic, and I find it difficult to come away from that sometimes. And I thought, you know what, let's make this one different. Let's make it a bit soft. So I give the basics at the beginning, but I'm talking to the person rather than just the entrepreneur. Don't forget, in as much as you're a business person, you're an entrepreneur, you have all these fantastic ideas, you are still a human being. So it goes a bit soft and comes away from being too academic. I talk about exactly how you're going to execute flawlessly, the challenges that you might face, things that will stand in your way. I talk about how you ensure that you maintain focus, and then the key things to take away from this. Next slide. Okay, now, I'm a person who uses quotes and anecdotes a lot. I taught in a couple of UK universities, and my students always say this about me. They enjoy my lectures because I tell stories and I share a lot of anecdotes and quotes. So they not only come to learn the academic stuff, they come to learn about life. And for me, that's a very important thing, because like I said, I've had a lot of very serious experiences in my life to draw from, some of which I'm going to share with you today. We're talking about entrepreneurship in technology specifically, but this applies to any type of entrepreneur. So whether you want to go into food and beverages, whether you want to go into education, whatever it is you want to go to, you want to start a business, you have an idea, you want to make it work. You want to take that thing from being a concept, just an idea, to actuality. That's what we're going to talk about today. The first thing I would say to you is, don't get carried away by the stories you read on the internet and in the news. Can you go back to the other slide, please, the quote? Right, so this quotation is by Jules Pierre. He's a co-founder and CEO of The Grommet. Jules says, ignore the hype of startups that you see in the press. Mostly it's a pack of lies. Half of these startups will be dead in a year. So focus on building your business so that you can be the one left standing. I completely agree with Jules. Don't be discouraged when you hear all these glossy stories about how they were able to raise $500 million and their idea had only been around for 6 months and they left their day jobs and this and that. These things do happen, but they are very, very few and far between. And Jules is right. Silicon Valley has a dearth of people with ideas, especially in North America. So they tend to jump at anything that seems novel, and they will throw money at it. And a lot of ideas have had money thrown at them that don't actually make money. In the recent times, think about Workspace. Is it Workspace? The office building that they do shared offices. Exactly. He had a lot of money thrown at him and he did not make a single penny. Up until the death of that company, it was running at a loss. One that people might be more interested in or more familiar with is Pinterest. Pinterest has actually been around for a very long time, but would you believe me if I told you Pinterest, up until I speak, is a loss-making venture? There are lots of people on the platform, subscribe to it. A lot of people use it. Even I have been there a few times, but it doesn't make money. If you think about it, some of these models that they invest in just are not feasible and will not make money. But don't be discouraged. We're going to come to that. There is no such thing as a bad idea. So still do it. We'll come to that in a few minutes. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so now let's do a proper introduction into today's topic. How to execute flawlessly. Let's start by examining the dictionary definitions of execute and flawlessly. Execute first is a verb, and it means to carry out fully, to put a plan, order, or course of action into effect, i.e. to do something. It's a verb. Flawlessly is an adverb. It means in a manner free from imperfections or defects, to do something perfectly. So execute flawlessly means to carry out a plan properly, perfectly, properly. Now, as you know, and I know, there is no such thing as perfection. So in general, can we have the next slide, please? What we are really trying to do, rather than attain perfection, go back. What we're really trying to do, rather than attain perfection, which we know is not possible, is to do the best that you can all the time. Always be on your best. Perform at the best that you can. You can start with yourself. So try to attain personal greatness, and then excellence will follow. If you are always on your best, excellence will follow. And the ways that you can do this, these are the things to consider. Executing flawlessly is the endless pursuit of perfection and the achievement of your goals and objectives. So you set those goals and objectives, and you are striving to attain them perfectly. We know that it's not practical and perfection is not possible, but that's what you're trying to achieve. Executing flawlessly is being in abhorrence of failure. I'm not a person who likes to fail, yet I will accept failure. I have failed in a few ventures, and I will talk about that as we go along. But in as much as I hate failure, I don't like it, it's not something that I enjoy, I do perceive it as a learning experience. So every time I attempt to do something and I fail at it, I get up, dust off, take a step back, and then I charge at it again, really energized. And I make sure that I am at my best, and I keep giving my best. The next thing you have to consider is that it's the desire for success that will make you always want to give your best. Because I have this fire in me, this motivation in me that makes me just want to be the best that I can be at everything I do. And I do give everything my best. And finally, you need to understand that that success you are seeking to attain is actually a journey. It's not a destination. So you don't set yourself a goal and then achieve it and rest on your laurels. There's danger in that. You don't become complacent. You should constantly be seeking to achieve new things. Always set yourself new goals, reassess your situation, and recalibrate. And we're going to talk about that in the next few slides. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. Now, there's a saying on the internet. Some people say it's by Albert Einstein, but we're not so sure. So I've put the credit as unknown. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. Now, that's a very, very important quote. And I think it's something that people should really hold on to and meditate on. I have a couple of undergraduates at home, and we've had this recurring argument. Mom, what's the point of school? Why do we need to get an education? We'll talk about that in a minute. But the truth of the matter is, getting an education is just a fundamental to help you get along in life. When they were at GCSE levels, I said to them, Don't bother about whether or not you get A's or how many A's or A stars you can get. Just make sure that you give your best, because the truth of the matter is, not everybody is going to need maths or biology or indeed literature in the career that they choose in life. But it's useful to have that knowledge so that you don't go around sounding like a fool when people talk about general things. It's good to have an idea about these things, not necessarily excel. Just make sure that you do your best all the time. This is what I tell them, because this is my mantra. Always give your best. I'm not particularly interested in the grades because the educational system is flawed anyway, but that's a different conversation. Can I have the next slide, please? So if we bear in mind that you shouldn't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree because it's not in its environment, it's not in its comfort zone, how should we judge a fish? A fish should be judged on its own merit. And that's where you have to identify your own value proposition. What do I mean when I say that? Your own value proposition. You need to identify what is that thing that you are really good at doing. It could be an innate talent, something you're born with, or it could be a skill that you acquire. So take a step back after this session and ask yourself this question. At this point in my journey, what is my genius? What am I really good at? It doesn't have to be an academic skill. Trust me, it doesn't have to be a professional skill. It can be anything that nature has endowed you with. And you'd be surprised. It could be the gift of the gab. And there are so many things that you can do with that genius. You could be a good listener. You could be a good cook. Maybe you're good at DIY. But identify what that thing is. And then consider the following after you've identified it. You need to be honest and realistic when you are doing this exercise, because a lot of people consider that you're not successful in life if you're not a doctor, if you're not a lawyer, but it doesn't work for everyone. I have an innate talent, and it didn't take me a long time to discover it. I can sew, needle and thread, sewing, fashion. This is what they call it in Nigeria. Fashion design is what they call it. Tailoring. I have an innate talent for tailoring. And for me, it's tacit knowledge that was gained from watching my mother and her mother sew. I remember when I was an undergraduate at Unilag, and my mother saw me, all of the dresses I wore in Unilag, by the way, they were handmade. I made all my clothes. And she would look at me and she would be so sad. And she would say, "Funke, my dear, I don't want you to learn how to sew." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mom, it's too late. I just knew how to do it and I couldn't stop myself from doing it." And for a long time, I struggled with my academic and intellectual self and my creative self. Indeed, this my fashion talent, before I did something about it, I actually made wedding dresses for quite a few of my friends. But what I eventually did, I was working in the City of London. I had a bit of a spare capacity and I had a bit of spare change as well. So I went into the fashion business and I had a bridal shop. It was quite a big shop in Hendon. And one thing that really stood out, I don't remember how the customers found out. I only used to be there in the evenings and at weekends. And most brides, it was in a Jewish part of the UK, if you understand what that means. Jewish people tend to be very wealthy and they wouldn't argue about the price of the dress. So they would buy whatever you had on offer at whatever price. And these brides, they were insisting that I make their dresses. And I'm thinking, I don't really have time to do this. I had a full-time job. I had 3 children under 6 at the time. And I was running this business and everyone would insist that I made their dresses. But you know how I translated that into money? I said to them, you can have me make it, or you can buy it off the shelf. If I make it for you, I'm going to charge you this many thousands of pounds. And people still paid. What that meant was I was smiling to the bank. And that's what you need to do. You need to identify that thing that you do really well. And I mean, be honest with yourself. You can't have skills in tailoring and then be pursuing a PhD and trying to get a doctorate degree in geology. Exactly. There's no point. You will be a round peg in a square hole, or the other way around. It won't fit until you come back and do that thing that you were put on this earth to do. The other thing you need to do is set the tone for your own success. I've always been an outlier, a bit of a rebel. I've never conformed to the normal way of doing things. And what that means is I stick out everywhere I go. But I don't mind, because I don't fit in anywhere anyway. But I set my own rules and I don't look back. And one thing I certainly don't do is I don't give detractors a chance. You know what I do? I brush it off my shoulder. People will talk about you. People will say mean and nasty things about you, especially when you're good at what you do. And you know what? The more people talk about you, the more convinced you should be of how good you are. You should be worried if you are in a community and nobody has anything to say about you, whether good or bad. If people don't talk about you, that means you are fading into obscurity. And who wants that? How can you excel when you're one of everybody else, like everybody else? You're not a pawn. Be a king, be a queen. Bring out that person in you and execute your goal flawlessly. And the final thing in identifying your value proposition, you need to be methodical and deliberate about achieving success. When you define success, don't forget what I said. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. So you get one thing, but you're constantly reassessing yourself and setting new goals. And you need to be deliberate about it. Be focused. This is what I want to achieve, and aim for it. Don't lose focus. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so in being methodical and being different, being an outlier, don't mind if they talk about you. They should be talking about you. You should dare to dream. Dream big. Dream. Be audacious. And like I said at the beginning, there is no such thing as a stupid idea. Look at Jeff Bezos today, Amazon, on the stock markets. The man himself is so stupendously wealthy and successful. Can anybody imagine that selling secondhand books out of your garage could have turned into what it did today? Think about it. If I told you I had a business idea, maybe I have a career, I'm working at GT Bank. I've been there for, say, 6 years, and I'm moving along. I'm about to get into middle management. And I come to you as a friend, and I say, Funke, I have this idea. I want to sell books from my garage at home. I want to leave my job. I want to resign. I know this is going to work. What will you say to me? Won't you tell me I'm crazy? But look at Jeff Bezos today. There is no such thing as a stupid idea. Do it. Try it. No matter how outrageous it seems, go out and do it. You need to take control, take ownership of your own future, of your own success. You need to walk your own walk. If you have that conviction, nobody can convince you it's not going to work. And you will make it work because you are doing that thing you really believe in. Another way that you can really succeed is to find people that can key into your dream and support you. So I would have gone to that friend and said, I wanted to quit my job and start selling books. And they would have said to me, Funke, are you well? What will I do? I will avoid them. I will step back from them. Not that I'm going to start being friends with them. No, I will go and try and make alliances with people who are already in business. I will go and find out information about selling secondhand books. Whatever business it is you want to do, you need to go out and get that information yourself. Don't rely on other people's opinions. People may not necessarily see your vision. You need to surround yourself with people who are like-minded and who will help you and support your dream and help you to be successful. Next slide. Next slide. Ooh. Okay. Now, this is a very personal one, and I still say this to myself when I feel discouraged. I tried to do something, I failed, or it's not going as well as I would like it to. I repeat this mantra over and over and over again. As one of my boys would call it, one of my sons, every morning, he says what he calls personal affirmations, positive affirmations. The heights that great men reached and kept were not attained in a sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, kept toiling upwards in the night. The first time I heard that was when I was doing my school cert, my GCSEs. I went to Queen's College. And I remember my mother would wake me up in the middle of the night to do some extra studies. And I would grumble, but Mom, I've been reading all this. She never shouted at me. She never raised her voice, never got angry. Instead, she would walk me to the sink, wash my face like a baby, set the table, put the books in front of me, and rub my back until I settled down. And while she was rubbing my back, she would say this over and over again. The heights that great men reached and kept were not attained in a sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, kept toiling upwards in the night. I toiled, and I toiled with her support and her push, and I came out with all A's. I came out with all A's. It paid off. And I'm very proud to say that actually in Queen's College, most of the girls came out with all A's, but I came out with all A's. So my toil paid off. And with everything that I have done in my life, I have repeated this to myself at the times when I'm starting to get a bit weary, a bit tired. Keep plugging at it. Keep on at it. It will pay off. Hard work does pay off. But you need to realize that you must work smart, not just hard. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide. Next slide. Okay, so how do you go about executing flawlessly? Having identified that thing, that talent that you have, you need to formulate a plan of action, develop a roadmap. You need to execute it and then review. Go back and look at the consequences of your action. And then you need to identify what has worked and what hasn't. And then you need to adjust. You need to be flexible. You need to be willing to change. And sometimes it's that unwillingness to change that causes people to fail and fail spectacularly. Now, there are 4 main steps to do this. And it borrows a lot from the dealing circle, those of us who have had some management, business and management training. Deeming has the plan,
Define.
act,
Act.
do, check.
Yeah.
No, plan, do, check, act. So it's very similar to that. But what you do here is you plan, you execute your plan, you reflect on the results or the experience, and then you adjust as required. So let's talk very quickly about planning. I think I'm running out of time. Let's look at the plan. Next slide. Okay, so when you plan, what you're doing essentially is you're identifying and analyzing that opportunity, that business opportunity that you think you have spotted, that gap in the market. You need to do a lot of work on it. You need to create goals and you break them into chunks. So you have your short-term goals, which would be things that you want to achieve on a day-to-day basis, a weekly basis, things that are immediate, even hourly. You need to have medium-term goals. So we're looking at 3 to 6 months, for some people up to 12 months, and then long-term goals. Usually when I meet people, one of the questions I ask them is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or where do you see yourself in 3 years? What are your long-term plans? You need to break down your goals into this strata. And when you're doing that, you identify the specific objective that you're trying to achieve. So for me, every morning I have a checklist, I have a to-do list, and I tick off as I go along during the day. Some days I still have items on my list that I haven't been able to complete, but those are things that I can push on to the next day. But there are some things on there that have to be treated immediately. Now, lists are always very useful because it helps you to monitor progress. So whether it's a short-term, medium, or long-term goals, you are able to go back and assess where you are relative to where you were aiming to be. You need to assess your environment. You need to do some sort of analysis. So for those of us who are familiar with management methodologies, impact analysis, SWOT analysis, your PESTLE, when we say impact analysis, if I do this thing, how is it going to affect every other aspect of my life? Okay, so let's take my business idea. I want to copy Jeff Bezos and I want to start selling secondhand books. I'm employed at GT Bank. I have a good job. In deciding whether or not I want to go into that business, I have to seriously analyze what impact it will have on my present situation. How long can I survive without my GT Bank salary? Is it practical for me to leave that job? If I was a single young lady living at home, then probably it's not such a bad thing because I don't have rent to pay. My parents will feed me. All I need is a bit of money to get me by. So maybe I might have been able to save some of my salary and put it aside for a rainy day, just in case I need money. Of course, if I'm a married man with a wife and children, I have to pay school fees, I have bills to pay. I can't just leave my job like that. So I have to think very carefully about what impact this action is going to have on my current situation. You need to go and talk to people who are in business and who have walked that walk before. You will learn a lot. And don't go and just talk to people who have been successful, because people underestimate the part that luck plays in success in life. And we will talk about that. I'm not sure I have time anymore. We'll talk about the role that luck plays in your success. You need to create a roadmap for execution. So what are the step-by-step things that I'm going to do? And then you must always have a fallback plan. Remember what I said, if I'm a young lady, I have my parents to fall back on because I'm still living at home. I can leave my job. But if I'm a man with a family, I have to think very carefully and probably save specifically for this venture. Okay, let's go to the next slide. We're running out of time. Execute. To execute means to implement the roadmap that you have created in your plan and to test that plan and measure the results. So first of all, you need to try and see if this idea is really viable. So with my secondhand books idea, I will not quit my job immediately. I will probably start selling those books and still keep my day job. So I will assess, I'll give it time and assess how I do. And then the result of that experience will determine whether or not it's worth leaving my job. I will publicize it. I will do everything I would normally, just as I would if I didn't have my job. So I'd be running a pilot just to see if, do people really need, is there a market for this idea of mine? You need to test it. You need to set standards. What are the benchmarks that you want to look for to convince yourself that you have been successful or that this idea is marketable? You need to build capacity and gain knowledge. If it's an industry that you don't know anything about, then you need to go and learn about it. If you want to go into import and export, if you want to go into farming, you need to go and get some knowledge about how to do this. And you must understand the importance of relationships and networks. You need to speak to people who have previous experience and who've done this before. You will always learn a lot from other people's mistakes. Let's go to the next slide. We're running out of time. So you've made your plan, you've started executing it, you need to constantly reflect. And that means you must assess your experience and decide the things that have gone well and the things that didn't go well. So you need to identify the lessons that you've learned. If there are things that need to be adjusted, go ahead and adjust them. You must be flexible and adaptable to change. And one of the reasons why people fail is because they are rigid and inflexible in their behavior. So can we go to the next slide? You must constantly review your plan. Having reviewed, you must adjust. You must be willing to make that change. And in adjusting, you mustn't settle for mediocrity. If you fall short in knowledge, go out and get that knowledge. Don't try to do everything yourself. You need to outsource. If there's somebody else that can do it better than you, outsource it by all means. If you have a small business and you're struggling with your accounting work, go and find an accountant that will do your paperwork for you. Don't try to do everything yourself. There's a reason why big organizations have specialized publicity departments. Get somebody to help you with publicizing, with sales and marketing. You can't do everything yourself. You must continuously adjust and find ways to improve on what you're doing. The important thing here is reflection. So of all those 4 steps, you need to constantly review yourself. And I am always doing this. Any situation I find myself in, every evening, before I fall asleep, I review my day. How did I do today? Is there anything I could have done better? What are the things I did well today? And those are the practices that I will try to continue doing going forward. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Right. This is very, very important, and it's something that a lot of people fail on. So Jaz Bagniewski, the co-founder of Eve Sleep, says, don't get distracted. Never tell yourself that you need to be the biggest brand in the world. Start by working on what you need at the present moment, and then what you need to do tomorrow. So these are short-term goals. So set yourself manageable targets, and that's what I started with. I said, set goals, but break them into chunks, short, medium, and long-term goals. Would you believe that ants can eat a whole elephant? Yes, they do. An elephant as big as it is, and ants as small as they are. How are they able to do it? By taking off little bits. So whatever you are trying to achieve, break it into chunks that are manageable. Don't be too hard on yourself. Be easy on yourself. Be your own biggest cheerleader, but be realistic about what's achievable and what's not. Now let's go into the meat of the matter. Next slide. So let's talk about those things that might distract you, apart from wanting to rule the world the day you start your business. Lack of confidence, fear, and doubt. I'm a woman, and I have been faced with all three: lack of confidence, fear, and doubt. But you know what I do? I put on my lipstick, pop my collar, hold my head high, and nobody can tell that I'm shaking inside. It's a natural human reaction. There's nothing wrong with feeling a bit of fear and feeling self-doubt. But what you must do is find mechanisms to cope, mechanisms to overcome. My greatest tool is repeating over and over again that mantra to myself, the heights that great men reached and kept. And I keep saying it over and over again. And I hold my head high. I might be shaking inside. My heart is probably beating like it's about to jump out of my chest, but you can't tell because I have this deadpan expression. My shoulders are square. My head is held high. My voice is steady, and I express myself because I have a conviction about what I'm trying to do. The second thing that causes people to fail is rigidity. When you're inflexible, you set your mind on doing things one way and you don't want to change. No, it's a recipe for failure. In order to execute flawlessly, you have to be ready and willing to adapt as and when required. Otherwise, using a phrase that I used yesterday with a good friend of mine, you very quickly become a dinosaur in whatever field, and you are at risk if you do not adapt. You need to be flexible and amenable to change. Poor planning is something that causes a lot of people to fail. You also need to find a good mentor and surround yourself with people who will support your vision. You must remain consistent. You can't wake up one morning, decide that you want to have a go at selling secondhand books, buy books, fill the garage, and then not sell any books. Go back to your day job. No, you have to try. You have to keep pushing at it. Yes, there will be obstacles, but you just need to keep pushing. The inability to access business networks. People always complain about this, as well as funding. But these are topics that would probably take another hour. So that's a different session. But this is also a problem that causes people to fail. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. How do you ensure that you maintain focus? By staying grounded. There's something that I take very seriously, and I think that it would help anyone who seriously wants to be successful at execution. You must take care of yourself. Take care of number one. You have to ensure that you are healthy, both physically and mentally, either by Sorry, I'm nearly running out of time, getting distracted. Okay, you can do this in various ways. Look after yourself and ensure that you maintain your physical and mental well-being. You can either do that by exercising, having a healthy diet, the mental well-being, meditating, positive affirmations, praying, if you like, religion. Some people do that. You have to have a good work ethic. Learn to work smart and be frugal with your time. Don't give the opportunity to time wasters because your time is money. You don't have time for people who are going to distract you. You need to stay focused. You need to consistently and continuously reflect. You must nurture your idea. Don't be in a rush. You could have moderate success at the beginning. Don't take that little money that you are supposed to invest back in your idea and go out and buy a car or go out and start buying designer clothes. No, the only person that you have anything to prove to is your own self. Forget everybody. You need to prove your own self to yourself. Can I do this? Yes. Forget about the trappings of success. And then get lucky. How do you get lucky? You create your own luck by always being constantly prepared. If you're in an industry that requires specialist knowledge, go out and get that knowledge. Be a lifelong learner. Try to be where you are supposed to be all the time. Extend your networks. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Slow.
Yes, I've completely run out of time. Sorry, guys. I like this is very passionate for me. And I haven't even had the chance to share my personal story. I've got 7 minutes left. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are we taking away from this? You need to be a lifelong learner and continuously improve yourself. I have a friend in his mid-50s, very successful career in New York, stock market under his belt, doctorate degree, more than 15 years, money, everything. But my friend is presently studying for an exam in December in a completely new field. Would you believe that? This is a lifelong learner, and this is the reason why they are successful. I have another friend, well, not a personal friend, a friend of a friend, who went to university and graduated as a medical doctor. Having graduated as a doctor, they then went into banking and got to the very top of banking. Having achieved success in banking and medicine, they have now gone into education. So you need to be a lifelong learner. These are people who are hugely successful. And trust me, they are real people. They are just not noisemakers because their success is a personal journey. They are not interested in impressing you or me. It's a personal journey, and that's where you need to be. You must be flexible, agile, and responsive to your environment. If there's a new skill that you need to learn to help you get ahead, go out and get it. You must pace yourself. Like I said, success is a journey. You've heard that someone started their business 6 months ago, and they bought land in Banana Island. Forget that. Success will come to you. And like I said, luck plays a lot. Luck has a huge role to play in success, and it's really underrated. But making your own luck looks like another session on its own. Maybe we'll have another session. I said it before, you need to avoid distractions. You need to avoid those things that will take your focus away from doing the things that will make you successful. Focus. Leave them behind. Let them talk. What do they know? Time will prove that you're not stupid. They'll say you're stupid because they knew you when you were in primary school. They knew you when you were young. They were your nanny. They looked after you. They used to change your nappies. So they can't see you as that successful CEO. Leave them behind. You know where you're going. You know what you can achieve. Just focus on that. You need to take responsibility and be accountable to yourself. If you are at that stage in your journey where you're already self-employed, don't say because I'm self-employed and I don't have a boss, I'm going to roll out of bed at 10 a.m. No. Think about Dangote. Dangote is up at 4 a.m. There's a reason why. Burna Boy used him in the song. Dangote, with all the money he has, he still dey find money. Isn't that what Burna Boy said? If Dangote still dey find money, why am I in bed at 10? Think about that. Be accountable to yourself. Treat yourself like an employee. Get up, Funke. Why are you in bed at 10? Go to work. And you need to be consistent. You need to be consistent. Don't let anybody or anything distract you from achieving that goal. And don't forget, you can't or you shouldn't do this alone. Get support. Learn from people who have done it before. It's always very useful because they will not only tell you the things that you can do, you will also learn from them the things that you shouldn't do. So you will learn from their mistakes. Final slide. Final slide. 2 minutes to spare. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. You need to create a habit of excellence. Some of my friends find me annoying. My children say that I have something called OCD. They call me a perfectionist. Someone once said to me, I asked someone to write a paragraph on my behalf, and she gave it to me to review it. She had told the others that I was going to find fault with it, and I turned around and said it was perfect. To her surprise, she could not believe that I gave it a pass mark. But you need to make excellence a habit. Be the best that you can be all the time. Always be on your best behavior. That way, your performance will always be flawless. And that's how to execute flawlessly. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Lots of questions. Thank you so much, Funke. Truly, that was quite, inspirational, motivational, and definitely delivered with passion. I really wish you told your story, because that part, I'm sure, not just me, everyone else was, looking forward to hearing that. But we'll take some questions, and if we have a bit of time, we can still, we'll be happy to hear your story. I'll ask in the group.
Okay.
If you want to hear your story, then people give the response. But I want to start by talking about, by asking questions. Some of the questions had been previously asked at the point of registration. And there were questions about really, how do I actually galvanize my team towards the path of execution? So we've made a plan, and plans are, ideas are a dime a dozen, and plans are always there, from business plans to different kinds of plans. But now mobilizing the team to get into the point of executing, and executing to the detail, following through our plans, how do I do that?
Okay, now it's very important to share information. And that's something, well, that's one of the things I found culturally shocking about Nigeria. I've been in the UK for nearly 40 years, and everybody shares information freely, especially when you work in teams. I've spent my entire career working in project teams in technology. So you are always a cog in a wheel. You need to pass information to other people. Now, in constituting teams, ensuring that communication flows freely, you must take into consideration each person's peculiarity and skill. For a team to be truly successful, every member must be valued. So from the person who probably carries the whole weight to the person who shirks, which you shouldn't allow, and that's a story for another day. If you do have a team member that doesn't pull their weight, there are ways to deal with them. But usually when you work in teams, you find that the load is not equal. Some people will tend to give more than others. The important thing is to identify the skills of each individual and place them in a role where that skill is best used. If you find that somebody is falling behind, you give them the support they need. Sometimes it could be lack of capacity, insufficient knowledge. If training is required, try to provide it. You might find that the person's personality does not suit that role. So you need to get to know your team really well so that you can place them. So that begets the question, what happens if it's a new team that's been constituted? This is where reflection and review comes in. So you constitute the team and you start out. Don't forget, starting out in execution, you must constantly review performance. So you are watching each person that you have put in the role to assess how well they fit and how well they are performing in the role that you have put them in. You could very well find that someone who doesn't perform particularly well in the original role may excel if you decide to put them in some different role. So you need to constantly review and reflect. And this is where that reflection being key comes in. You need to constantly check, keep checking, keep reviewing, keep recalibrating, keep changing, and make those adjustments as required.
Thanks, Cynthia. I think one part that I would like to share, because also from my own personal experience, in one of the organizations that I work for, we had something that we called PBID, PBID, so just called it PBID, right? So plan is the P. We would always have plans, and the plans could be your marketing plan, could be your brand plan, could be your business plan, whatever it is that plan is, right? And the B part was briefing. Cascading,
yeah,
where you brief and cascade the whole plan, the vision, the purpose behind it, the strategy, cascading it all to the entire team, to every single person who will be working on the team, irrespective of whether the person is a driver in that team or a manager in the team. So full briefing, full transparency on cascading. Then the point on implementing. The implementing is always structured.
Yeah.
You just don't run into the implementation. You create, as at that time, what is called Gantt charts, or action plan, I think. Well, so let's call it a Gantt chart. That's how I know I was going. Where you have exactly the activities that you need to do, all of the activities laid out, who is supposed to do it, and by when is it meant to be done? Because that enables very detailed tracking. And of course, you track it consistently on a weekly, daily basis, depending on how tight the deadline is. The D part is debrief. Debrief. So after we've done the full execution, so for the sake of this, let's say we want to launch our product into the market, and we've gone through all the steps of launching. Naturally, we're tracking how we're performing, and we're coming back to the table to revise the plan and readapt it on the basis of market realities. But the debrief at the end of it is that part that a lot of people forget. When you debrief is, what did we do well? You start with what did we do well? Yeah. Because what we did well is where we need to keep reinforcing that thing. That is the strength of the team.
Absolutely.
Where are the areas of improvement? Which means, what could we have done better? If we changed one or two things, could we have achieved even better, stronger results? So what could we do better? And then what are we going to do? So what are we going to do going forward? So that's the PBID model that I have used over time. And when people ask the question of how can I energize my team to produce the results I desire as a CEO, because that was one of the questions at the point of registration. For me, it will be the PBID model. You do that model, you carry everyone along, you track performance, and you debrief. And by the way, as a CEO, if you have areas where allow your team actually to point out areas where you could have done better. Give that confidence and give the enabling environment that allows people to open up to you and tell you the things that you could have done better, and take it in your stride. Because in any case, it's your organization and you're looking for improvements. Maybe you are also the area where you need improvement. So that's one part that I would like to add. Let me go into the chat box and see other questions that people have asked. see, we have excellent comments. Thank you very much for the
Great.
presentation. I
Thank
love
you.
the soft-spoken style of presentation. It can only come from confidence. Thank you, Funke, for your confidence.
Thank you.
So Akadri is asking, in trying to create a brand name and you have competitors in your field, how does one stand seeing that your efforts keep hitting the brick wall?
Okay. So this is a problem that a lot of startups face. I think I mentioned at the beginning, when you are starting out in business, you are a small concern and you want to play with the big boys, don't make that mistake. The first thing you need to do is, in addition to finding what I said is your value proposition, you need to identify your unique selling point. So what is that thing that makes you different from everybody else? And you need to state it so that people can identify straight away. I'm trying to think of an example that's close to home, but I can't think of any Nigerian companies. But take Domino's Pizza. Domino's Pizza has a branch in Nigeria. I think their logo, their mission statement is something along the lines of delivering freshly baked pizza within 30 minutes. And if they don't deliver within 30 minutes, your pizza is free. And they actually do this all over the world. And I tell you, I've timed them in North America, in 3 states. I've timed them in Europe, in 3 countries, and I've timed them in Nigeria. The pizza was delivered in 30 minutes. So they do take it seriously. So for someone like me, if I wanted to eat pizza, I'm not a person who's difficult to please. I would always go for Domino's because I know the pizza will be here in 30 minutes. So that is the unique selling point of Domino's Pizza. And that's how you distinguish yourself. And I'm sure that I'm not the only person who has noticed that Domino's Pizza is consistent. If you have that unique selling point and you make it clear, you itemize it in, say, a vision statement or a mission statement, people will take notice. But beware, don't claim to do something that you will not be able to achieve. So given that there's all this traffic in Nigeria, you are a courier company, for example, and you know that Third Mainland Bridge is closed and you're starting a business and you're telling people, my chauffeur service will get you to the airport within 1 hour. Please don't. You have to be realistic in identifying your unique selling point. Remember what I said, you have to assess the environment all the time, constantly. So if you do have a chauffeur business, for example, you have to make it clear to people that because of the current situation, we may not be able to make 1 hour. Third Mainland Bridge is closed. There are roadworks on Echo Bridge. It would take probably at the moment from where I am in Ikoyi to the airport, probably 2 hours or more. Yes, if not 3 hours. So you need to be realistic about that. And that's another thing I said earlier, being realistic when you assess yourself. So don't misrepresent yourself and claim to do things that are not practical. You must always be practical, but always state and identify that unique selling point.
All right. This question is for you. Immediately landed. Ibrahim has a knack of asking awesome questions.
Okay.
So he says, remember your analogy of fishes to climb trees?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes the system actually sets same target for monkeys and fishes to climb trees. So as a fish, what strategy can you adopt to move yourself to the river?
Okay. Since we are being cryptic,
Metaphors.
So, yes. So we're using fish and monkey, and we've said that the fish is trying to climb a tree. It could be the other way around. We could throw a monkey, for example, into the river. That one is really easy to find an answer to. So what I would say to the flip side of that is learn to swim. So as a monkey, if you get thrown in a river, that one's easy. Go and learn how to swim. Remember what I said about building capacity and gaining knowledge. And you're never too old to learn a new skill. I gave 2 examples of my friends in their 50s who are presently studying for professional exams. So let's go back to your original question. How can a fish move from the tree back into the river? The power of people around you. You need to know your own limitations. There are things that you are capable of, and there are things that you just cannot do. A fish is built for water. It's built to swim. There is no chance of a fish climbing a tree. It needs to get back in the water. And it's usually something that it won't be able to do by itself. So this is where the power of people around you comes in. You need to plug into that support. And they may not be very obvious. They may not be willing. I've had people I have forced them to support me. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Thank you. Because they helped me to cross a road. And I am very grateful for it. And that's another thing, gratitude. So what that fish needs to do is look around at monkeys and other animals who are adept at climbing trees and ask nicely, can you please throw me in the river? It's easy. Well, maybe not, but that's one of the strategies that can be used. Metaphorically, you need to surround yourself with people who can help you achieve those goals. Avoid distractions. Keep away from people who don't buy into your vision. Surround yourself with like-minded people, and you will get there eventually.
Awesome. Okay. Guys, I think there are many more questions, right? If you have any questions, please, you can raise your hand so we can ask you, you can unmute you and then you ask your question verbally. I'm trying to see how we make sure that we close this in the next 3 minutes. But should you want anyway, you can of course type your question into the chat box so we get the best out of Funke. Listen, life rewards the people who take action, and that's absolutely the truth. Someone had asked initially and said in business literature, strategy is well covered. Why is there scanty literature on execution?
Okay.
But action still remains the absolute fundamental that changes the fortunes of you as an individual and also of your business.
Absolutely.
So why isn't there enough about execution? And from that question, tell us your story.
Okay. Well, the dearth of availability of execution stories has a very good reason. It's easy to make a plan. Anybody can make a plan. My teenage son can make a plan to take over the whole world. He can write a business plan to sell whatever item I tell him to. But the truth is, a lot of the planning we do is inadequate and unrealistic. And if you make a plan that is not realistic, it becomes unviable. It cannot be successfully executed. What we're talking about here is failure. So where people go and execute and they come back having failed, they do not choose to chronicle their failures. And I think that's a very big mistake that people make. Let me talk about one of my failures. My very big bridal shop was fine until the stock market crash of 2008. At that point, I was turning over averagely £150,000 a month. Not a year, not Naira, £150,000 in wedding dress sales.
How much that is in Naira?
Monthly turnover. So that's the number of dresses I was selling. That's the amount of money that was coming into my bank account as sales.
73 million Naira.
Absolutely, a month.
All right.
But not profit, I said turnover.
Sure.
Okay, now listen to this. In September of 2008, I watched in horror, because I had a job in the city myself, and I watched in horror as Lehman Brothers staff had their belongings in cardboard boxes and they were exiting the building. The crash of Lehman Brothers had a domino effect on the City of London, on the UK stock market, and subsequently the entire world. Everybody suffered for it. So for a business that was running in the UK, you can imagine, I suffered for it. At the time, my day job was as a consultant to the UK government. I was working in Westminster as a government consultant. One of the things I had been called in to do was spending reviews. And in my heyday as a consultant, I was asked to advise MPs on how to handle the crisis. And the first thing I said, I was very honest, and I'm a very honest person. Anyone who knows me knows I'm very candid. The first thing I said was, get rid of consultants and all unnecessary costs. Guess what? As soon as I gave them my report, I was out the door. My contract was not renewed. So that was the first way I was affected. Secondly, because there was a recession, a lot of people had lost their jobs. A lot of weddings that had been planned were put on hold. So what that meant was a lot of wedding dress orders were cancelled. As of September 2008, I had 20 members of staff, full-time, working in the shop. It was a very busy shop. We were open every day, Sunday included. By November of 2008, which was 2 months later, I was down to five members of staff because everything just went dead quiet. The phone stopped ringing, people stopped coming into the shop. Eventually, in 2010, I had to wind up the business because it just wasn't making sense anymore. I was having to take money from other sources to prop the business up. So that's one of my failures. I have had many. I wish I could share more. But there's nothing wrong with failing. Absolutely nothing wrong. Can I share another one?
Yes. Well, we need to wrap up.
Okay,
so,
wrap up.
But it looks like the story, people are enjoying the story.
I
think
story.
What is important there is their life lessons to pull down there, right? And also, the mindsets, right? To say it's okay to fail, it's okay to trip, to fall. But what is not okay is to stay there.
Yeah, not doing anything.
You need to get up.
Yes.
And try again. Go ahead, please.
Okay, my second failure. If you joined early enough, you would have heard me say that I've been in Nigeria, in Lagos now for just over a year. I'm a Lagos girl. I miss Nigeria. I miss the heat. I miss the madness and the chaos. So I can't stay away normally. But I have done this before. The first time I did it was in 2009. I made several mistakes and I failed spectacularly. I had done an interview with a financial services company in the summer of 2009 and was offered a job to start in September. At the time I did that interview, I had 3 young children. I was at a point in my career in the UK where I felt, okay, I'm ready to go to Nigeria now. I hated the cold. I just wanted to be back home. So passed the interview, agreed, set a start date for September. When I arrived in Nigeria, I was heavily pregnant. At the time I went for the interview in summer, I think it was June or July, my pregnancy wasn't showing. And I'm thinking now that I should have told them I was pregnant. So it seemed as if I concealed my pregnancy, but I really didn't mean to. If they had talked about it, it would have been something, a point to talk about. And I probably wouldn't have been offered the job. But I arrived in the office on the first day with a big belly. My baby was due in January. I started work. Great job. My office was in Onikon. I was meeting people, talking to banks and financial institutions, Nigerian Stock Exchange. We had a fantastic project going. I was having fun. My children were used to Nigeria. I was living in Lekki. My children had started school and they even gotten used to the idea of turning off the generator at midnight. They were happy. Everybody was happy. I was happy. But guess what? My timing was wrong for two reasons. I was heavily pregnant, about to have a baby, and unfortunately for me, I hadn't done my environmental assessment. Where I lived in Lekki was in Chevron, Northern Foreshore Estate. It was at the height of the construction of the Lekki Expressway. So driving the children first from Northern Foreshore Estate to a road on that Lekki, a road off that Lekki Expressway, a journey which normally would take 10 minutes, would take 2 hours in the morning. And then it would take me even longer to get to work. I remember days where I would get home at 8 p.m. with my big belly. And then I'd still have to get up really early in the morning to go to work. So those were the first two mistakes I made. My baby was due in January. I left Nigeria in December because I didn't want to be too heavily pregnant and not be allowed to fly. So that was the end of that particular job. But I hadn't given up. I came back after I had the baby. I came back to Nigeria with 4 young kids. That was my third mistake. I had a tiny baby and I had 3 children under the ages of, under the age of 8, I think it was, in 2010. And that was not easy. But I did again secure a very, very good interview in Abuja. I was quite willing to move to Abuja. This is where my flexibility was working for me because I'm a highly adaptable person. I was happy to move to Abuja. I had the interview on a Monday and, you know, it was successful and I was offered the position. I was very happy. So I got home. They said I would get my letter delivered on Tuesday. Tuesday went by, I didn't get anything. So I called my cousin who I was staying with in Abuja and I said, hey, listen, these people haven't come back to me. He said, oh, it's Nigeria, don't worry, they'll do it by Friday. Wednesday, nothing. By Thursday afternoon, I was really worried and I said to my cousin, you know what, I'm going to call the HR director. And I did. Mind you, this was May or June 2010. When the director picked up the phone, he said, oh, madam, I'm sorry, I forgot to call you. The board has been dissolved. Even me, as I'm speaking to you, I don't have a job. I was like, what? So what was all that for? The board had been dissolved. No fault of mine. But if I had done my impact assessment and my environmental assessment, it would have occurred to me and I would have considered. Yaradua had died and Jonathan had replaced him recently. So a lot of boards for these federal parastatals were being replaced. I should have been sensitive to the fact that that could have happened to me. If I had done my homework, I would have known that what I was joining was the old board and I would have held on. If I had waited for 1 week, it would have made a big difference. So that was my second failure. I came back to Lagos with my tail between my legs and went for more interviews. And then I secured an offer from Phillips Consulting to be a consultant with them. But I decided not to take it. Deep in my mind, I was fed up with Nigeria. I thought, you know what? I'm not ready for this. My children were still too young and I really wasn't ready. I thought, let me go where I can manage these children and then come back reinforced. So like a he-goat with my horns, I stepped back. I left Nigeria. That was in 2010. I went and fortified myself and I came back last year. 10 years later, the children are much older, they're more independent, I can do more. I'm more experienced, I know what to look out for, and trust me, I am executing flawlessly. I am, because I am adapting, I am practicing all those reviews and reflections, and it's just working. The doors are opening without me even having to push too hard. It's like I'm on the way there and the opportunities are just coming my way. And because I have prepared myself, I'm able to take them up.
Isn't that just awesome?
Isn't that just awesome?
It is awesome. I think that is a story on resilience. It's a story on pivoting. It's a story of knowing, having an understanding of the time and knowing when to pull back.
Absolutely.
You know, should it be required?
Absolutely.
And those qualities are definitely required by every single entrepreneur because life will happen and challenges will come, right? But how do you react to it? And what is your staying power inside that takes you through? I think I would say that is just the perfect wrapping up of this discussion. You've talked about flawless execution. You've talked really about actually you've demonstrated resilience, right? You've given us very clear steps of how we can galvanize our teams, how we can bring execution into our own personal lives, our work lives, and of course, our own businesses. We've also talked about PDIC, plan, brief, implement, and of course, ensure that you have a debrief. Friends, definitely, we've said it before and we'll say it again, life rewards those who take action. We can learn as much as we want, we can plan as much as we want, planning is important, but we must absolutely execute our plans and execute them flawlessly by tracking, by making sure you have a checklist, by following through what are your plans. But if there's need for review, like Funke reviewed, went back to the UK, right? That was real revision, right? Went back and then came back again when she believed it was the right time, and came back, having done the right pestle, I'm sure.
Yes, I've done my homework.
All of the analysis, and then come back, and now she is thriving. It's also a learning of what failure does to you, and failure teaches us. When we fall or when we fail, when we consider that we have failed in a venture, it does not make us a failure by any circumstance or any standard. You are not the failure. The situation has failed, or the business venture has failed, or the product has failed, or the software has failed. You are not a failure. You pick yourself up again and then reanalyze, go back to the drawing board of planning, and then come to the market with flawless execution. Okay, friends, in the chat room, any last words for Funke? Funke, kudos. Funke is a very resilient and strong woman.
Thank you.
Funke, I want to keep reading what people are saying about you. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
But can we invite you to address people in rural areas? Someone is asking.
Of course. Where? As long as it's not in the northeastern part of Nigeria.
All right.
I ain't going no Boko Haram.
Fine. There you have it. Oluwaseyi says, thanks for this class, Funke. Kindly check me out on IG, all right?
Okay.
And then he's an upcoming musical artist.
Okay.
Ibrahim says, thanks, Funke. Emanuela enjoyed the session. We're really glad that you enjoyed. Apologies, we've gone way over time.
Sorry.
But, it's been an engaging session. So, thank you very much. And Tunde says you're a superwoman. Huh?
Thank you.
It's always great to hear that, superwoman. So you want the presentation, you want the deck, you want the video, please go to www.ecoicenter.com/webinar. You would have the video, you would have the presentation as well. You would even have the benefit of our past sessions that we've had, because we have this every single Thursday. We've talked about TECHBIZ Nation, which is our community of entrepreneurs where we add value to each other, we learn, and we create engaging conversations that support your business. So if you want to join TECHBIZ Nation, we'll be glad if you joined. You would go to www.ecoicenter.com/TECHBIZ Nation. That's where you'll be. Funke, how does one connect with you?
I was saying to a very good friend of mine just yesterday, I said, in as much as I'm in technology, I create it, I deploy it to people, I am a technical dinosaur. I do not have Instagram, I do not have Snapchat, I do not have Twitter. The only thing I have is LinkedIn and Facebook. But you know what? Because of what my friend said to me yesterday, I am going to create Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter accounts, even TikTok. I will even do a TikTok. So I will, you can find me first on LinkedIn and Facebook, and then I will share my
Okay, and your
new
handle is
social media handles.
Funke
Banigo.
Funke Banigo. All
Yes.
right. So because Gav is asking, Gav would like to invite you to speak to Indian Professional Forum. So Gav, she's Funke Banigo. Please check her out on LinkedIn and send her a message. That will just be perfect. And then for everyone else, Funke is available on LinkedIn. Funke is also available on Facebook. Send her a private message and she'll be very willing to provide support within the context of of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But of course, she's a consultant, so some of those things will come charged. But then again, it's value added, isn't it? Thank you, everyone. Life rewards those who take action. Please take action. Use this learning to take action in your business, to support your teams to execute, and of course, looking forward to hearing your positive stories of how this has worked for you. Have a lovely evening. Stay safe. Are you joining the NSAS demonstrations? Please stay safe as we do that. We are hungry for a better Nigeria, and we believe that this is the time for it. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Thank you.